Hello, I'm Tony Guida. This is My New York. My guest today is a remarkable young woman. She is a fourth-generation advocate for children and families in this area. She helped design the city's universal pre-K program. Equally important, she is a wife and a mother and a daughter of Brooklyn. Good reasons, all of them, to know her. But there is one more. She nearly didn't make it here today. She almost died. Jennifer Jones Austin, in the springtime of a busy life, came down with a fever. It was not the flu. It was acute myeloid leukemia, and the prognosis, imminent death. Consider it pure joy is her courageous, revealing, often even humorous story of her horrific battle to live and the gift she says that battle gave her. Jennifer Jones Austin on Unexpected Gifts, next. Jennifer Jones Austin, how nice to have you here today.
Happy to be here. Excited.
And we need to, before we start and talk about the book, I think we need to tell the audience who you are in terms of a day job, and you have a big one at the CEO and Executive Director of FPWA,
Yes.
which used to be called?
Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies, a mouthful, right?
Yeah.
FPWA is a social policy and advocacy organization based here in New York City. We have about 170 member agencies and faith-based partners, all of which are out in the communities throughout New York City, some in Long Island, a couple more in Westchester, that provide direct social services for people in need. And we are like an umbrella organization working on policy and advocacy concerning individuals in need, and then also advocacy for the agencies themselves.
I imagine the need has deepened, widened in the last couple of years.
Indeed it has, indeed it has. We have in New York City, we count people living in poverty. We often don't count people who are actually struggling to make ends meet. The definition of poverty, according to federal standards, is a family of four making less than $25,000 is to be considered living in poverty. But when we don't count the people who are making above $25,000 but still struggling to make ends meet, then we're undercounting the people in need. And in,
Exactly.
New York City, research shows, according to something called the Women's Self-Sufficiency Calculator, in New York City, a family of four needs about $100,000 to meet their basic needs.
Right.
So
In this city, sure.
we know this well, right? And in New York, we've got millions of people, while they are not technically poor, they're struggling to pay rent, struggling to pay for childcare, struggling to, get to and from work because of transportation costs. We're the organization, along with several others, but we're one of the organizations that are not only trying to help the agencies that help them, but really trying to change the conversation and policies around the supports that they get.
I understand that. I have a limited experience with an organization called Whyhunger. It's an organization that deals with people in need. And they're always talking about not that people are hungry, but that they're struggling with food.
Right.
A lot of people don't know where their next meal is coming from in the sense of their resources are so limited and tight. Do I pay the rent?
That's exactly right.
Do I get a hamburger?
That's exactly right. And here in New York City, we all can get excited when we see new buildings rising, when we see more efforts paid towards recreational spaces and public spaces. But it's at a cost, right? As these buildings are going up, rents are going up. New York City is much more attractive today with lesser crime. It's much more attractive today than it was in the 70s and in the early 80s. And so more and more people want to live here. Well, for people who don't have significant wages, people in lower wage jobs, lower educational, education and experience, they're struggling. And even for people who are middle class, who may have a college degree, but are not at the highest levels in their fields, they're struggling too.
We could go on.
We could.
The need is immense, but I want to talk about the book, about your experience. Leukemia in 2009, a complete surprise to you, and you were 40 or 41.
I was just shy of 41. I was 40, just shy of 41.
And the book is just out, so what? We have 9 years. Why so long between the event and this?
So the book was written, I didn't come out of the disease and say, oh, I'm going to write a book. While I was going through the illness, people kept suggesting that I write, and I didn't really write. I wrote some letters to my children because the leukemia was not a, oh, go get some chemotherapy and all will be right with the world. It was a, you have leukemia, you've been given, like initially I was given a 99% chance of death. I had chemo, I survived the first bout, but I was told that I would need a bone marrow transplant. The book is about running, a race against time to find a donor and not having the best luck in getting one. As I was journeying through it, people said, write, leave letters for your children. You'll want to tell your story, or somebody will be here who will have to tell your story for you. And so they were encouraging me, but I didn't really feel compelled to write at that time. I was just trying to fight for my life.
Oh, of course.
Right? I come through, and now people are saying, you really need to tell this story, because it was this horrific battle, a lot of ups and downs. It was about community. It was about the power of family and community and faith and perseverance. And they're like, you need to write. And I hesitated because I thought, I just went through that. I don't want to have to relive it. And to write about it, one has to relive it. But then one day it hit me, I do need to get it out because I'm holding it inside. And I began to write. And the more that I began to write, I realized that in writing, I could actually share the story. And in so doing, maybe others could benefit from it. So,
well, you talk about, I guess, the process of writing, among other things, gave you a gift, which in the book you talk about it being the gift of your life. Your purpose are much bigger than you could ever dream. I think I can understand that, but I look at you and I wonder, what did you still have to learn about your life and your purpose? I mean, your resume is just, your DNA is service to others in nonprofit organizations. You're with FPWA now, but you were the senior vice president of United Way when this happened. You were this city's first family services coordinator. Bloomberg appointed you to that. You helped design the city's universal pre-K program. What did you have to learn about your life?
I think that there were things that I didn't know that I had to learn that I actually did. I had to learn how to let go. People say I'm a planner to a fault. I could not plan my future. I was not in control of my future. I had to learn how to let others do. I had to learn how to be comfortable with uncertainty. I had to learn a lot more about vulnerability. Like embracing the experience, not trying to run from it, embracing it head on, and then dealing with it, and also like figuring out how to face death while trying to live. Something I'd never had to do before. And frankly, something that we all should be doing because none of us knows how much longer we have.
Exactly. But that's such a difficult,
very difficult
razor's edge.
Right, because we all walk around thinking we've got another month, we've got another year, we've got another 5 years, 10 years.
You talk about still having post-traumatic stress about this, and I don't want to induce an attack here, but I do want you to tell our viewers something about this horrific. I mean, you read this book, it's a harrowing experience to see what a young woman, mother of two, wife, is going through. You as you say, you get the diagnosis of leukemia, and you're probably going, what?
Yep.
And then they say, well, you have to have a bone marrow transplant, and that's an excruciating experience.
Right. And then I learned that I, most likely going to match with someone of the same race and ethnicity, and then we find out that there are no matches in a registry with 8 million people in it for me, and it's one of these things. Just picking up on the post-traumatic stress. When you have something happen to you suddenly and it comes out of nowhere, and your entire life is disrupted, turned upside down, it's hard to just kind of walk away from it and say, oh, that happened and now we're going to keep moving. Because now you live in a place that you had not visited before, where you know anything can happen at any moment. And it's all a matter of, like, is it going to take you out or not? And how are you going to deal with it? The post-traumatic stress, so it's that whole understanding of anything can happen, but it's also, if I have a cold and it lingers too long, okay, is there anything more going on here? It's walking into the doctor for an annual checkup and feeling good, feeling healthy, but
You did that before. Been there, done that.
I've been there,
You walked
done
in
that,
and
right?
felt, oh, no, you weren't healthy. I mean, you had a fever and you
Right.
thought it's the flu.
Right. And
Okay,
then
give me
something else.
something.
Yeah. So
Turns out to be 99% prognosis
Right.
of death.
here's what I told my doctor once. My doctor said to me, I had a big scare a couple of years after I was sick. It wasn't cancer. I had a gallbladder problem. But I wound up in the hospital around the same time during the year, same kind of like onset where I had a flu-like fever. I wound up in the ICU. They intubated me. It was bad. And when I came to and they took the tube out of my throat after having been intubated, my doctor admonished me. She said, "You really need to do something about this PTSD." And I looked back at her and I said, when you've been through what I've been through, then you can tell me that. I'm going to own my PTSD, right?
Good for you.
Right?
Way to go, girl. as they
And
say.
so I actually don't think it's a negative. It's not debilitating. I move through life with a greater sense of, I don't control all of this. And so let me try to live my days as best I can. I run around sometimes like a mad woman, but I'm doing the things that add to my life, that make me feel like I'm here and I'm here for a reason. And so make the most of the time that you have.
So 5 months after the initial diagnosis, you finally get a transplant, and we'll talk about it. No match was actually found
Right.
for the bone marrow, and it was a stem cell thing. But but nothing. A blood cord.
Right.
Explain
The
that.
umbilical cord blood that is thrown in the trash, typically when babies are born, actually has stem cells in it that have life-saving value. So what happened for me was that we could not find someone in the National Donor Marrow Registry, better than 8 million people who had similar genetic typing.
And you and your husband and family and friends all over the country
Did drive.
found 13,000 more people
To
who hadn't
join.
been registered, and still no match.
Still no match. But their coming to the registry resulted in other people who'd been looking for donors getting matches, right? Let me just pause and say here, what was great about that was that as I was suffering and as I was facing possible death, very possible death, my family, my husband, my children, my siblings, my mother, friends, they got to see that there was something positive coming out of this because other people were getting matches. But I didn't want to be a martyr, right? I still wanted to live.
One for yourself.
So the doctors came to us one day and they said, we're not finding any adult unrelated donor matches in the registry or through people coming forward. But we have found cord blood, umbilical cord blood. And so essentially what happens is stem cells are extracted from the cord blood, thrown in the trash, and the placenta when babies are born. And essentially they take that cord blood and they transfuse it into your body after they've taken you through chemotherapy and radiation to knock out your immune system to suppress it. Then they put in these stem cells and it generates a new blood and bone marrow system. Now here's the really cool thing. So we talked about the work that I do, right? I am out there trying to do my best to fight poverty. I came into this work in law school determining while there that I was supposed to work on behalf of vulnerable children and families. And so the really cool thing is that 17 years later, when, here I am about the business of trying to save vulnerable children, when I need someone to save me, to help extend my life, it wasn't the 8 million people in the registry, it wasn't the 13,000 who came forward, it wasn't my siblings who should have been a match because we have the same mom and dad. It was cord blood from 2 children. And I'll go a step further and say African American baby boys,
Wow.
who some say are the most vulnerable in our nation. Arguably are.
Yeah.
Kind of cool, right?
It is.
So I needed to write the book.
I'm glad you did.
Right.
I want to go to just one more part of the awful 6-7 months of this. You, after the transplant, I don't know what it was, several weeks, but you finally, I mean, you just have had enough with the intubations and the chemo and so much punishment of your body that you said you were emotionally shutting down.
Yeah.
I mean, you were giving up, I guess.
Yeah. So I had been pretty strong. I had come to terms from very early on in the onset of the illness that if I did not live, then it was my time to go. And so I had to come to terms with that. I fought cancer, but I didn't fight that I might die. And there's a difference. There was no reason to exhaust energy trying to fight something I couldn't control per se. So we could fight cancer and be up for cancer, but not fight the possibility of death. So I'm living and I'm going through all of this, and I'm going through the transplant, but there's setbacks with it and things aren't going well. And so I begin to succumb to the possibility of dying. And I tried to make peace with that. And then I had this amazing experience, this dream where someone showed up in the dream, and I won't give it away, but somebody showed up in the dream, and just by being present, it let me know that it wasn't my time to die.
There's a lot of faith in this book, and of course, Jennifer is the daughter of a well-known minister in this city, who was the longtime pastor of the Bethany Baptist Church.
That's right. That's right.
Where Bedford-Stuyvesant?
That's right.
In fact, there's a street.
There's a street named after him. Yes, for him. So one of the things I try to help people appreciate is that it is a book that where I bring in a lot of my faith, because it's my faith that allowed me to kind of soldier through this. But it's not a book about, it's not a preachy book. It's not a book about faith per se. It's about experiencing crisis, life challenge, and trying to find that within you that gives you strength and helps you to to find your grit and your determination to press on.
It's all of that, and it's inspirational. I found it inspirational. Aside from the religious aspects of it, you're pretty good at defining yourself in your worst moments and your thoughts about them, which you express. You mentioned the letters. You wrote letters to your children and to your husband, and I was charmed by the subjects you chose for the letters to your children. You wrote about God. You told them about your thoughts about God. You told them about sex, and success, and being black. And this was all to be left for them in case you couldn't have these conversations with them.
So my thinking was, I wrote them in aggregate about 50 letters for my son and for my daughter. My thinking was that should I die, if they ever wondered what mom would have thought about this or that if I gave them a box of letters that spoke to values, beliefs, my approach to to living in certain respects, that they would be able to read those letters and from them, gain a greater sense of who I was, how I showed up in the world, and they could cobble together some understanding of how I might respond to a certain question or a certain issue. One of the letters I write that people chuckle at is, I wrote a letter to my daughter and my son about the right clothes. And, I said something along the lines of cheap makes you look cheap. Classic clothes cost more, but they last longer. I told my daughter, a golden rule, wash your bras, and black underclothing, with black clothes is a good thing, And I think I even said something along the lines of, a bad undergarment can ruin an otherwise great outfit.
And she was what? She was an adolescent at
She
this
was
time.
12. She was 12. But it was these things that you would ask a mother.
Sure.
But if mom's not there and you want to know.
Well, there's a moment in the book, well, there are many, but there's a moment where you talk about essentially what the kids have learned, you're still in the experience, you're towards the end of 6 or 8 months, but you talk to them, what do you do if mom dies?
Yes.
And they have the answer.
Yes,
and the
yes.
answer is?
I keep going.
I keep going. Both of them said,
I keep going. And I still say that to this day because, maybe in part having worked, I'm not a social worker, but having worked with, individuals, working with people who are having challenges in their lives, what we often see is that when trauma, presents, when tragedy presents, that children will shut down. Or sometimes people stop living when somebody else has stopped living. They're breathing, but they stop living. And what I didn't want was to die and my children stop living too.
How has it changed the family? I mean, we're 8 years on, 9 years on.
Our communication is stronger. We say what we feel, we say what we mean. I think we cherish each other more. I think we cherish time together more. I personally, I grew because I stopped being as much of a controlling mother and wife, and so I gave them space. And I think that on the whole, we all understand that we have to deal with situations as they come, and everything is not going to be as we planned. And so let's step into it rather than run from it.
And I imagine how has it affected what you do, your job?
Well, that's a really good question. One of the things that I learned from this experience, when I saw, thousands of people coming forward to possibly be a donor for me, people who didn't even know me, people all across this country who'd never laid eyes on me, but they were willing to step up for me. What it helped me to appreciate is that community really can take care of community. And that when we think about the challenges that beset people who are poor, people who are struggling with addiction, people who are struggling with illness, people who struggle with incarceration, whatever the situation may be, that there is a community that can rise up and be a support for you. And so what it did was it helped me to appreciate that we should never minimize or underestimate the power of community in stepping up and rallying to be a support. And so now a lot of my work is about helping people in the community to be a voice for others, to be a resource for others.
I should tell the audience that among Jennifer's 400 jobs is she's on the board of the bone marrow transplant
I've served
association.
Yes, I've served
a spokesperson for them.
Right, for the National Marrow Donor Program, the New York Blood Center, and I've also served on the board of the Icla de Silva Foundation, which is a bone marrow.
I was surprised, by the way, just to interject, some of the things you said about the registry. I mean, that despite the fact that there may be 20,000, well, I don't know, how many are there in the registry?
So there are
several million.
Today there are 9 million, but the percentage of African Americans is woefully low.
What surprised me was, regardless apparently of who they are, there may be all these 9 million in but they don't really follow many. I was surprised by the percentage that do not follow through.
Right, and so what happens is, what we've learned and come to appreciate is that, you may be at a fair, you may be at a rally, you may be at a church, and they're doing a drive. And in that moment, you feel compelled. But then, you move on. Maybe you move to another city, but you don't update the registry to let them know that you've changed addresses, or maybe even in the same city and you move. Or you grow older and, maybe you think you don't have time. Or maybe you feel like, oh my goodness, this is going to inconvenience me. This is like I've heard stories about people, having to go through a very gut-wrenching experience to donate. And so people disengage. And there may be people on the registry who are suitable for you. In fact, there were 4 people who were suitable for me, but they couldn't get in touch with them. So there's an importance to signing up but then making yourself
How
available.
do we get more African Americans in the registry?
So what's happening right now is there's a lot of outreach to places where we find a lot of African Americans. My family went to the African American Church, which was a home base for us, given my family's background. Historically black colleges and universities, another place where people go. Black fraternities and sororities, another place. But we also need to do more around cord blood donation, public cord blood donation, because as our nation, as our society becomes more, we do more interracial coupling, bloodlines become less and less, like of one lineage, right? So, if I am African American and I marry a person of Hispanic descent, our children now have African American, and for most African Americans, there's something else, that they're, that they're mixed with.
Of course.
And so the bloodline becomes further and further diluted. Cord blood, which is what I got because we couldn't find a donor, you don't have the same issues because cord blood really doesn't have an immune system. And so when your body receives the cord blood, it's not fighting an already formed immune system with an existent immune system.
You're working the ground every day with every ounce of energy in you, and I'm so happy there still is so much
Thank you.
energy in you. And you need to read this book. Consider it pure joy, which actually is a quote from James, from the Bible.
From the book of James.
And you can go look up the book of James and see the rest of the quote. Jennifer Jones-Austin, it's a delight. I'm so glad you were here.
An honor for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, folks, for watching. We'll see you next time.